So we're talking an absolute value, and we know that that is the distance from 0. And so now let's talk about, what about if it's not an equal sign? What if it's an inequality? What does this mean? Oh my goodness, it's not writing. Okay, what does that mean? So if we have a number line, and we have 0, obviously it has something to do with being 8 away, so we'll go to 8 and -8. And let's just see if we can come up with some ideas here. So remember, this is the distance. So x is less than 8 away. So that means x has to be less than 8 away from 0. So it could be 2 away from 0. It could be 3 away from 0. It could be 7 away from 0. It could be 7 away from 0, 2 away from 0, 3 away from 0. So it looks like it's basically everything in here all the way up to 8, but it can't be exactly 8, so I'm going to put an open circle at the 8s. So it kind of actually looks something like this, right? And so now we have to look at, well, I don't really want to draw this every time. So what can I do with this? So let's see if we can make that work. If I'm looking over here on this side, on the positive side, it looks like x is less than 8, right? If I ignore the whole left side, I just look at the right side, this is saying x is less than 8 because our line is going to the left, which is smaller than, right? If I look over on the left side, so I'm looking here, it looks like it says x is greater than -8 because the line is going to the right, which means it's going to the bigger side. So let's just look at what that means with our original. Our original said the absolute value is less than 8. Well, if you look, that actually matches this one. But it doesn't match this one. So we did the -8 like we usually do with absolute value. And then if you look, the sign had a switch, which if you think about it makes sense that it switches in the negative world because what's bigger and smaller switches in the negative world. So it kind of makes sense that when you do the -8, you'd write the switch the sign. And then if you remember, this is a compound inequality, so they're connected in between. This is an and statement, so we will go ahead and put an and there, and that would be our answer to that. So let's try one that's a little bit more complicated than that, because you know that was just an x inside. So let's look at all right. So let's look at this one. The absolute value of x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 1. Okay. So like I said, we're going to separate it into positive and negative, just like we would before. But we're going to do the switch for the negative. So what I mean is, I'm still going to write x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 1. So I still write exactly what I had there without the absolute value. And we'll go ahead and solve that one. And so x is greater than or equal to -1. But then we need the negative part. Excuse me. So we have x plus 2. I need the -1, which means it switches, whether it's positive or which one's bigger, which one's smaller. So we have to switch the sign. So again, I did exactly what was up here. I've got the x plus 2. I had to switch it to a -1, which means I also had to switch my sign. Go ahead and solve that. So -2. So x is less than or equal to -3. Now, before you can actually circle this and say this is your answer, you need to decide if it's and or. And my suggestion, the best way to do that is to graph. So we put -3 on the number line. We put -1 on the number line. So I got those from these spots right here, -3 and -1. And now I'm going to graph what it says. It says that x is less than or equal to, so I'm going to do a closed circle. Less than is smaller, so go to the left. The other one says x is greater than or equal to, so closed circle because it says equal to. And x is bigger, so I go to the right. Now, if we look at this picture right here, look at that picture, that's an or statement. So this is an or inequality. And I want to see all of this. When you do your homework, I want to see these. I especially want to see this. And I want to see the graph. So all of this that I've circled in white is stuff that I expect to see. And the only other thing that you're going to see is if the problem starts out with something outside the absolute value. Oops. So minus 3, and then plus 4 is less than or equal to 10. So if you see something like this, your first job, member, is you always want the absolute value by itself. So let's get rid of that 4 so that I just have an absolute value. Then we can discuss splitting it up into the positive and negative. So I do it with the positive, keep it exactly the same. When I do the negative 6, I have to switch the sign and then solve from there. So I'll just do that quickly. Add 3. We have 3x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Divide by 3 on both sides. X is greater than or equal to negative 1. So add 3. 3x is less than or equal to 9. Divide by 3. X is less than or equal to 3. Then we graph it because I need to know if it's and or. Make sure you put your numbers where they belong in the number line. Don't switch that up. For the negative 1, x is greater than or equal to, so I need to color that in. For x is less than or equal to 3, I need to color that in. Well, and they got connected, so I know that this is an and. So all of this would be my answer.